A closed club for decades, and now the Gulf Cooperation Council is set to admit Morocco and Jordan as members. What's prompted the GCC leaders to take such a surprising decision? And why Jordan and Morocco? This is Inside Story. Welcome to the program. I'm Darine Abu Gaida. Well, a proposal to expand the Gulf Cooperation Council to include 2 Arab monarchies came as a big surprise to many. Since its establishment back in 1981, the Council has closed its doors to others and focused instead on promoting economic and political ties among its members, and those are Kuwait, Qatar, the United Arab Emirates, Bahrain, Oman, and Saudi Arabia. But at a summit in the Saudi capital, Riyadh, on Tuesday, the GCC leaders said they welcomed a request by Jordan to join the group and invited Morocco to enter into negotiations, and that's to finalize the necessary procedures for joining the council.
At the request of the Hashemite Kingdom of Jordan to join the Cooperation Council for the Arab Gulf states, the leaders of the Cooperation Council have welcomed this request. The Council of Ministers have been instructed to send an invitation to the Foreign Minister of Jordan to enter into negotiations and to complete the procedures necessary to do so. Based on contact with the Kingdom of Morocco and its invitation to join the Gulf Cooperation Council, the Supreme Council has authorized the Ministerial Council to invite the Minister of Foreign Affairs of the Kingdom of Morocco to complete the necessary procedures.
For more on this, I'm joined by our 3 guests. From Amman, Jawad Anani. He's a political analyst for Al Basira. That's a political and economic think tank. Mr. Anani was also the former Jordanian foreign minister and minister of information as well. From Rabat, Lahsen Haddad, a columnist and expert on strategic studies. And Mr. Haddad also teaches at Morocco's Mohammed V University. And also from Kuwait City, Fahad Shulaimi, who's a security expert specializing in the GCC region. Gentlemen, welcome all of you to this edition of Inside Story. Lahsen, over in Morocco, to you first. What's your assessment as to why Morocco in particular would join the GCC?
Well, I think that Morocco has very strategic ties with the Gulf countries for a long time, so it's a strategic ally with them. I mean, and despite geography, this is a surprising kind of invitation. Here in Morocco, it's taken as a pleasant surprise. But I think the reason why a lot of the Gulf countries, why the Gulf countries invited Morocco is they are probably concerned about its stability. And it seems to be the only country that is remaining stable now in North Africa. And I think they wanted that stability to continue. And then on the other hand, I think Morocco is the only Arab country that has initiated reforms and taken the protestations, and the protesters seriously and their demands seriously, and then the Moroccan government is responding to those. So they are interested in that kind of process, and they wanted that to go through, especially that really responding to the protests in the streets and a lot of the demands which are social and economic. I think that Morocco's public finances will be in very dire straits within the next year or so. And I think that being concerned about the stability of Morocco, being concerned about Morocco staying on the track of reform, I think the Gulf countries are extended this surprising invitation to Morocco. But I think also there may be an interest in learning from those kinds of reforms, because I don't think that the Gulf countries would want to stay really aloof of what is happening around them. And I think they want probably to deal with that situation before it gets out of hand like it got out of hand in other countries like Tunisia, Egypt, Yemen, or Syria.
All right, so the question of timing is certainly an important one, which we will discuss in just a moment. But first, let me get the assessment of Mr. Anani over in Jordan. What about Jordan's position in joining the Gulf Cooperation Council? Why does Jordan need the Gulf?
Well, Jordan is a country that is adjacent to the Gulf states, and I believe that there is now a paradigm comparison at this transformational juncture in the Arab world. There are models of evolutionary processes which are championed mainly by monarchies, and there is more of a revolutionary approach that is now prevalent in more in the traditional Republican countries. So I believe that there is a model which the Gulf states want to overweigh the other one. Secondly, I think Jordan is a country that's adjacent geographically and is very much attached economically and politically and security-wise with the Gulf states. That relation probably has witnessed certain ups and downs, but still over time it is a stable and it is a very close relationship. And most Gulf states consider that the internal security of Jordan is part of their own, as well as Jordan thinks that the Gulf security is very much relevant to its own. So I believe that at this particular moment in the Arab world, this step comes in very at an opportune time, and Jordan stands to gain economically from it.
Fahad, in Kuwait, why, in your opinion, did Jordan and Morocco why are they seeking membership at this particular time and not before?
Jordan joining to the GCC was not a surprise, because as Mr. Anani said and explained, there are many factors very similar to the environment on the GCC countries. Morocco was a little bit surprising, but I could find a justification for that. On the GCC, our security circle comes from among the GCC, then the regional Arabic countries, then the coalition, including United States. After 21st of January, we felt and we saw many regimes, especially as Mr. Anani mentioned, the republics were falling out. So I think we need to find alternatives, and we need to find a good alternatives. In Egypt now, if you see the Middle East, Egypt is having some obstacles on coming back, and that might take time. Syria is now shaking. If you go to North Africa, the only stable country, mainly stable, is Morocco, with a 31 million population. So the choice of the GCC, having those countries, came from different angles. Security angles, one of them financial and economical cooperation, another one political cooperation and diplomatic support is the third one.
Okay, and we're certainly going to talk about all these options as well as delve a little bit deeper into the economic cooperation. But just let's explore right now the timing of this move and the move by the Gulf Cooperation Council, the GCC, to include 2 Arab monarchies. It comes in the middle of what many describe as an Arab awakening that's going on right now in the region. The fall of governments in Tunisia and then Egypt has sent shockwaves across the whole region. And the GCC moved quickly to protect one of its members, Bahrain, from revolts similar to those in Tunisia as well as Egypt. In March, the council sent troops to help the ruling family there in Bahrain quash popular protests. And then, of course, there's the increasing tension between the Gulf countries and Iran. Tehran has been very critical of the GCC for sending troops to Bahrain. It called it a crime against the Bahraini people and announced it would send an aid flotilla to Bahrain. Jawad Al-Anani over in Jordan, does this move by the GCC to include Jordan and Morocco have anything to do with the rising tensions between the GCC and Iran?
I believe it will have to be in the back of the minds of the politicians and decision makers of the Gulf. But certainly, you know, the threat of Iran is not recent. It has been going on for a while. But the recent events in the Arab world, of course, have emboldened that step and dictated its own urgency. Yes, security consideration within the states of the Gulf states, and also in terms of relations with neighbors, is very important. And I'm sure that this must have weighed a lot on the minds of the Gulf leaders when they invited Jordan and Morocco to come in.
Lahsen, what do you make of that? Did it weigh on Gulf leaders' minds when they invited your country, Morocco, as well as Jordan?
I think so. I think that if you remember, Morocco cut off relations with Iran because of Bahrain, I mean, just like about 2 years ago. And I think that Morocco also reacted to Iran's kind of attempts to convert a lot of its immigrants in Europe into Shiism. And I think that Morocco coordinates like very closely with the Gulf countries, with the Arab Gulf countries, in order to prevent any kind of Iranian penetration, which is like ideological, into the Arab world. But also, I think there is a very important concern about Iran. I mean, like trying to create coalitions, especially with like all the kinds of news of Iran intervening in the oppression of Syrian protesters. So I think there is something in the back of their minds, and I think that there is also concern within the Gulf countries that maybe Iran will benefit from what is happening in the Arab world. This Arab awakening may benefit like some groups that obey, I mean, like that have like some sort of Iranian obedience and all of that. So I think this is part of strengthening some of the Arab countries, especially countries like Morocco and Jordan, which although they are open politically and they have like undertaken so many reforms, they still have like very dire economic and social situations, and they may be vulnerable in the short term. I mean, like to either the influence of groups that are bidding to Iran, or to, I mean, like to just like the negative side of the awakening that is happening in the Arab world. So I think all of that is in the back of the minds. I think there is stability, and I think that stability in the region, at least in some of the countries like Jordan and Morocco, is very vital for the Gulf countries, and I think it's vital for the strategy of really like containing Iranian influence within the Arab world.
Fahad, in Kuwait, in your opinion, how worried is the GCC bloc of Iran right now?
I don't want to just impose or put the security as the first reason for that. And I'll give you some figures and numbers, then I will talk about it. The GCC spent more than 300 billions in the last 13 years. $233 billion were spent on air forces. There is 175 billions expected to be spent until the year 2020. This is billions and billions goes to the armament, because our friends, I'll be very frank, the United States and others, the cost of defense is high. Now, it's not only the security issue. We look to Jordan as a neighbor. We look to Jordan with a 6.5 million population, the first rank in education. They have a very good health project. There is a tourism industry. There is an extended geographic line of communication. Jordan is now a good exporter or a good manufacturer for a light weapon system. All these kind of factors could be added together to work with the Jordanian.
And let's point out also that Jordan is also an ally of the United States.
Of course. Now, and even Morocco. If we go to the far west of the Arab world, we think we could have a person, we could have a fingerprint in North Africans. Morocco could communicate with Africa, could communicate with the new republic in North Africa, or the new Arab republic that might emerge. When I mentioned that, Libya, Tunisia, and Algeria, these kind of relationship and partnership could lead to a good benefit. Also, Morocco is being famous of having the biggest fishery industry. 595,000 tons has been exported from Morocco. Tourist industry. So there are many fields. It's not only security, the security issue. Also, I think that there will be a new reshape for the Arab League. We need, as a GCC, we need some good friends, and the friends staying with us, trying to help us to reshape the Arab League.
Well, you raise a very
the major players.
Okay, you raise a very good point there about the Arab League. Before I go to my guest in Jordan and in Morocco, what happens to the Arab League if the GCC expands and continues to expand?
You're
the question for me,
ma'am?
Yes, no, Fahad in Kuwait, go ahead.
Yes, I think in the GCC we were disappointed from the way that the Arab League was performing. Some GCC foreign ministers even mention it on public, that is, we need to reshape the system of the Arab League. I think the Arab League needs to be improved. The GCC was the only organization has been survived since its creation in 1981. There was Arab Cooperation Council, it failed. There was the Moroccan Coalition or the Moroccan Council. I don't know about it, but the GCC were a survival creature, and this needs some friends with him to support him. And we support them. It's a winning situation.
Okay, all right, it's a winning situation.
The Jordanian and the Moroccan with us will add diplomatic and military power to the GCC.
Jawad Anani in Jordan, what's Jordan getting to look out of this economically? How is it going to impact the economics of Jordan? And in return, what can Jordan offer the GCC?
Yeah. Well, let me say that right now, the economic relations between the GCC and Jordan are very good. You know, Kuwait invested in the last decade about $8 billion in Jordan. Other Gulf states have invested about another $20 billion. Also, the Jordan's foreign receipts income, 70% of that comes from the Gulf states in terms of workers' remittances, tourism, aid, and soft loans. So in a way, there are very strong relations. We want to expand such relations. And as was mentioned before, Jordan's economy is now passing through a bottleneck, and that bottleneck can only be done, and Jordan can only take that shock if we receive aid and support from our Gulf brothers. So therefore, I believe that in the short run, there is something economically for Jordan to benefit from. In the long run, Jordan has to offer a lot. First of all, we have very well-educated and technology-savvy labor force. We also have excellent education and health sectors. We are producers of minerals. If Jordan can get energy, it can become a heavy industry base for Gulf states, for joint ventures, not only between Gulf Council companies and Jordanian companies,
Jordan,
but
however, is also
with third countries.
Jordan is also facing high unemployment as well, and it's facing a heavy bill for oil and gas. So this membership brings hope to the Jordanian people.
Well, it brings a sort of a comfort that, oil and the energy, the biggest problems in Jordan are, in the short run, are water and energy resources, and water can be created if there is sufficient sources of energy. So I believe if the Gulf Cooperation Councils can ensure that steady supplies would continue to come to Jordan, then Jordan can really resolve two of its major obstacles towards its takeoff economically.
Lahsen, how is this potential inclusion in the GCC for Morocco going to boost the economy there where you are?
Well, I think it will boost it insofar as investment is concerned. I mean, Morocco is a magnet of investment from Kuwait and from Saudi Arabia and the Emirates. I think if they do it like collectively, I think it will go up. I think Morocco also is one of the leading tourist countries in the Arab world, and I think there is a lot of potential there as well. Real estate has been booming, and I think the industry is also although it's connected to Europe in so many ways, I think that's also a possibility in addition to fisheries and also modernized kind of agriculture. All of those constitute like a potential for economic investment, but I think Morocco will win, I mean, like in 2 or 3 ways. One of them is like it has high unemployment, and I think educated workforce, so that could be like, it could be a provider of labor. It has in the past, but I think this could be done in a systematic manner for a lot of the Gulf countries which have like shortage in terms of labor, whether it's skilled labor or manual labor. I think the other thing also is that Morocco has now adopted this kind of very proactive social and economic policy in responding to a lot of the demands that exist in the street. But that means like it will have a deficit in its budget, high inflation, so it will also need like funding. And I think that the Gulf countries probably could help in that, in making the macroeconomic, I mean, like a climate, I mean, better for Morocco if it does that. And I mean, like maybe like also oil, where Morocco is not an oil-producing country, would be something that Morocco could benefit from. But on the other hand, I think what Morocco could provide, in addition to the skilled force and also in its expertise in a lot of, I mean, like in industry and tourism, which could be like beneficial for Gulf countries, it's also a model politically, along with Jordan, I guess, for a country which remains a bit conservative. It is a monarchy, it is traditional, but at the same time, it has been a country that has been initiating very, very sweeping like political reforms. At the same time, that is doing that within like some sort of conservative Islam and within monarchy and also within some sort of traditional culture.
Okay.
That model, I think, may be of interest for the Gulf countries.
All right, Fahad, in Kuwait, Lahsan there raised the point of labor, whether it's manual labor or other types of labor. Let's just look at this for a second, because if you in Kuwait, for example, have an influx of Jordanians and Moroccans coming into Kuwait now to work at a time when we see GCC countries such as Kuwait, such as Saudi Arabia, Bahrain, they're all trying to employ their own people, push them into the marketplace. So how is that going to affect that drive in the Gulf?
Well, I think the GCC market is a big market, and there are, in the next 10 years, there is a mega project will be established. Example, in Kuwait, we have 4 big major cities. We have a $50 billion project for improving Bobian Island and other new cities to create the Silk City. This is one. Secondly, I think having unskilled laborers or a low program laborers from Morocco is a little bit difficult. I think what we expect that we will have from our brothers in Morocco is doctors, engineers, in farming industry, in civil engineering, sometimes teachers, French teachers, or in the education process. Also, there is a shared project in tourism, fishery, as the doctor mentioned. So, but if we go to the Jordanian side, yes, in the past we have thousands of Jordanian teachers. I think education system bringing from Jordan is eligible and is reasonable to bring. Also, doctors, nurses, and all kind of health facilities. One more point that is, don't forget, in Morocco, on the security-wise, they have 256,000 standing army. Some troops has been sent in 1990. On our brother Jordanian, they have a very good military capabilities. I was an officer. I was in Jordan before, and I know that army. I think when we need them, they can come.
Okay, let me just jump in here for a second, because we're just about to come to the end of the program. On paper, all you gentlemen seem to agree that this is a very good move forward, but if you look at the European Union, and I'll go to Jawad and Amman for this. If you look at the European Union, for example, another bloc, it took many years to come together. Is the GCC jumping the gun here?
No, I don't think so. I think that Jordan, as far as Jordan is concerned, you know, attempts by Jordan to join the GCC have been going on for a while. And like I said, you know, proximity, like-mindedness. Also, Jordan has achieved some good measure of economic growth and development in the last 2 decades. So in a way, the separation is not all that big. However, Jordan can easily become comfortable with its relations, because such relations are already well poised, and I don't think that the introduction of Jordan will cause any problems as far as the GCC are concerned.
Let me go over to Lahsan over in Morocco to ask you the same thing. Is it too soon for the GCC to be implementing this, including Jordan and Morocco?
I don't think so, but I think there should be a good dialogue. I think there should be a good cultural, political dialogue between the countries. One, I think there should also be very important consultation with relation to economic and then social issues. and also cultural issues. I think if you do it like in a very integrated manner, I think it could happen. But you need to do it like piecemeal, and you need to also like let the process happen. But I mean, at the same time, I think this can go faster than what happened in Europe, because like Morocco has had very strategic kind of relations with all the GCC countries.
Jawad Anani, Lassan Haddad and Fahad Shulaimi, thank you very much for joining us on Inside Story. And of course to our viewers, thank you for joining us, and we always welcome your comments and your suggestions. You can email them to us at insidestory@aljazeera.net. Goodbye for now.